the Secret Doctrine book is the same in the sense he talked about. It really is how to approach the Secret Doctrine. So there's 3 parts to it. There's the introduction and how to study, and then the second part is the theory, so he really gets into the Secret Doctrine. But the third part has I think 5 chapters, and 50 of those pages are meditations and exercises on the different aspects of the Secret Doctrine. And those, if you pretty much, even if you don't read the first part of the book, those will be helpful in themselves. So I just wanted to point that out. And I mention that because my study of the Secret Doctrine was pretty much non-existent until my part of Fohat Productions, I say Pablo is the author, I'm the everything elser. So I do everything else. So I've read this book at least 5 times, at least all the way through. And every time I read it, I'm like, wow, this is good. Oh, this is really helpful. So now I feel that I can go to the Secret Doctrine and have some of, at least a basic map or an idea of what I'm looking for, instead of just words on a page that I feel like are zooming past my head. The other thing I want to point out that was super helpful in getting me started was Doss McDavid did a talk for TSA on how to study the Secret Doctrine. Doss, is that what it was? Do you remember that talk? Yes. Yes. So what he did was he made laundry lists, I think you called them, about what to look for in the Secret Doctrine. And one of them was, if you look at the little heading on top of each page, it tells you what that page is about. So, and I never thought to look at that, or I'm going to butcher these now, but the 3 fundamental propositions, the 5, there's 5 something, and there's 4 something others. So that was very helpful to give me a broad view to go to the Secret Doctrine. So Doss's talk on that, which is on the TSA website, it might be a little difficult to find. Yes.
How do you spell this name, Doss?
Doss, D-O-S-S, McDavid.
Thank you.
Yes. So.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Since you're the publicist for Fohat Publication, what is Pablo working on right now?
We are working on the intergroup teachings. We're republishing Hank Spearenberg's intergroup teachings, expanded and corrected. So, did I say it right? Corrected and expanded. Yes. So thanks. But yeah, it takes us a while to get through a book. So don't be looking for it on the bookshelves anytime really soon. So, all right. So I will get started. My part of this weekend is I'm really excited about meditative inquiry. We do meditative inquiry, or we've heard of meditative inquiry, and I found that when we did this, it seemed like everybody just talked slower, a little bit quieter, and gave more pause. But they said the same words that they said in any other meeting or study group that we were in. So it didn't make sense to my brain what was a meditative inquiry. So I also started doing some study with dialogue. I'm very interested in how we communicate. As I apologize, Tree, I'm missing communication on getting here this weekend. So I think most of our trouble in the world, or most of the trouble that I have in my relationships, is communicating with one another. So what I did was I put together a system that I think will work both individually as I communicate with myself, and as I communicate with my partner, my kids, my family, my close ones, and as we communicate in the wider group, especially in our lodges. Because I think a tool like this or a system like this can be very helpful. And I'll go through a couple slides that'll explain it a little more, but basically, we don't want to have a discussion. We don't want to just talk back and forth, or in certain situations we do. We want to throw out ideas. We want to agree, we want to disagree, no, yes. That's like a ping pong ball. And to me, I picture that kind of up here all over the place. When we do dialogue and we do it correctly, what we're doing is we're taking our ideas and we're not speaking to one another, but we're speaking to a center. We're speaking to the space that can take all of our ideas, those ideas that go beyond the words, like Pablo was saying, and kind of sift out the stuff and then bring back to us insights. And those insights is what we're looking for, and that the secret doctrine can help us, for our brain to find the peace so those insights can filter through. So I'm not an expert. This is my passion for right now, and so I just bring to you my study as we go. So the practice of dialogue. One thing, if we were in a smaller group and a circle, we could do this verbally, but since we can't, some of the other sessions, if you bring a paper, pen and paper to write with, I finally had 3 kids, went to how many parent-teacher conferences and back to school nights, and what my last child, his senior year, I went to a literature class, and the teacher said, writing is concentrated thinking. And that really hit me, because my brain works where everything's all over the place, but as soon as I put it down on paper, I've had to sift through in order to get to the essence of things, because you can't write forever if you're taking notes. So that could help. That's one way to help in your studies, when you're listening to lectures, or in this kind of practice in a bigger group. So writing is concentrated thinking. So I call dialogue communication towards unity, and discussion communication towards fragmentation in this sense. So just right here for right now, I'm saying dialogue is the better tool. So and that's not saying that there's no purpose for discussion, but just to clarify and contextualize, I'm using dialogue as communication towards unity. And then a discussion comes from the same root as percussion and concussion, which basically means to shake up. So most of the stuff we do, and as Pablo said, our aim is to keep in mind that Theosophy is not to fragment and to break apart, but to bring back together, to have the awareness to connect in a logical, clear, consistent in our actions, in our thoughts, in our feelings, in our actions towards one another. So when we come together with the right intention, and this is I'm using this in the context of in our lodges or in our discussions with family members. Some of it is in essence on a superficial level. What our goal is, or what our aim is to bring that to a deeper level. And this deeper level has where the space is full of potential. That's why we're doing this. Everything we do with the lower concrete mind is limited by its very nature. There's only so much matter that there is. But the more we can go higher or beyond that, we reach a place where there's potential for anything, or an unlimitedness. Unlimitedness. Sorry. Okay. Basically, it's the same as the sound of the orchestra. If I gave each of us an instrument and we just started playing the best that we could, it would sound a little bit disconjointed, fragmented. But if we were to work together, even in practice, if we work together, then we can harmonize that sound, and we all know what a nice orchestra sound is. This manner of study, of practice, because I think all things are a skill, and all we just need to do is practice them a little more, is what HPB is talking about when she tells us to spiritualize the teachings, or to spiritualize the study, and avoid materializing it. Okay, so HPB tells us here, it is through a group in which all members, even if unacquainted with one another, work for each other, and by working for all, work for themselves. We will be made to realize that in union and harmony alone lie strength and power. The object is to help the future growth of the Theosophical Society as a whole in the true direction by promoting brotherly union. So this is kind of just the idea. This was her idea for group work for from an esoteric point of view, given to her inner group. It's going to shine in her eyes. So this was the idea HPB of group work given to her inner group. And the idea is so that we move in the same direction. Oops. So for our groups, or even ourselves, to gain more of an occult influence, we must come together with a common goal, practice, and do it in a spirit of harmony. The Mahatmas in the Mahatma letters say that when there is no harmony, the occult forces do not come down, or we cannot rise to those occult forces. So instead of the fragmented nature from which our daily life is based, we can work from a place of harmony. Dialogue and meditative inquiry are the practices I share with you tonight to achieve what Blavatsky tells us is not only possible, but most desirable. Okay, I'm going to give you 4 parts. And these aren't parts that are steps. So it's not you do this, and then you do the next one, and then you do the next one. They're actually quite integrated. And as you improve in one, the others improve also. So I've just listed them here as I came up with them. And I think although listening is probably one of the most important skills that we can acquire in order to find harmony within ourselves and with others. So the slides tonight present skills, as I said, that when practiced can be useful to harmonize our bodies and prepare our minds so that when we study, our study is beyond the mundane use of words, whether it's the spoken word or the written word. This then is the intention from which we harmonize our conversations and create a brotherly atmosphere wherever we go. There's 2 ways of listening. One is with the physical ear, and that's the word heard. It implies the recording and remembering from the past knowledge, past experience, and past memories. It is the answering of a question or making comments from something that's already conditioned and fragmented. When there is listening without the physical ear or beyond the physical organ of the ear, we turn inward, and the state of listening is not fragmented. This is the place that is whole. There is no past involved in this listening. There is no fragmentary answers or comments or judgments. There is only hearing with a curious mind, and here is where we open ourselves to insights. I'm suggesting to start here with a few linguistic shifts. So the first shift I'm making is dialogue. So in our lodges, in my communication with someone, I want to dialogue with them. I want to get to a deeper place. I want to get there with a curious mind. I want to listen with curiosity. So, and if we make these linguistic shifts, for me, if I call it now dialogue, I know I'm stepping into a different arena. And this may change the way that I think, and then I can bring up these skills and improve the processes by which we communicate. So listening beyond regular hearing redirects this intention of our part in the conversation. It starts with a commitment towards inquiry. Then what I say here, listening with a silent mind, comes from beyond the chatter. The chatter that is, what do I need to do to fix this? What do I need to do to answer correctly? What do I need to do to put this idea or this thought in a category so it fits? So like Pablo mentioned, we have to learn to be able to sit in the unknown and that discomfort that our mind creates not being able to categorize something. So it is this listening that doesn't aim to improve. I'm not trying to improve on you. I'm not trying to modify. I'm not trying to change. I'm not trying to fix. I'm not condemning. All I'm doing is listening with a curious mind, with introspective, with what I want to know, tell me more. I don't want to ask specific questions, but I want, tell me more. I want to know more from you. So it comes from concentration, it comes from awareness, it comes from attention, and it comes from focus. By doing this, we're creating the space from which we can go deeper. All right, Krishnamurti tells us here, the journey that he is proposing is one that we take together, is not to the moon or even to the stars. The distance to the stars is much less than the distance within ourselves. The discovery of ourselves is endless, and it requires constant inquiry, a perception which is total, and awareness in which there is no choice. This journey is really an opening of the door to the individual in his relationship with the world. So Krishnamurti emphasizes here the task that is not easy, okay, but it is straightforward. There are things that we can do. The problem, one of the problems is that we don't, we're going to talk a little more, one of the quotes talks about trust. We have to trust that the process works, and it works inch by inch by inch. Until we can create a mass, a critical mass, from then which we get those insights. So it's we work, bam, it's there, okay? Our practice of listening with a silent mind would move us from the fragmented state into a wholeness, as Krishnamurti is talking about here. Oh, sorry, I thought something happened. All right, so the application here for listening in the silence is to inquire into the workings of the mind with an unwavering trust and a consistent daily action towards the goal. Set a timer on your clock. Put a sticky note somewhere in the bathroom. So some part of the day you're saying, oh yeah, I want to dialogue. I want to listen. I want to listen with a silent mind. Whether it's somebody on the telephone, whether it's somebody on the television or the radio or in person. Your goal is to once a day listen with a silent mind, with a mind that is ready to take on whatever's present. The exercises, once again, not only can you listen with a silent mind, but the practice to get up to that state is, can you look at an object without naming it, without describing it, without commenting on it, or having an opinion on it? Krishnamurti tells us, can you look at a flower without saying, oh, that's beautiful, without saying, oh, look at the pretty color, oh, it smells nice. Can you just look at it? And when you can do this, what we're doing is we're opening ourselves into a wider essence. When we start naming it and describing it, we're talking about this particular flower instead of all flowers, or the archetype of flowers. And then can we begin to distinguish when the lower mind is engaged versus when the higher mind is influencing the processes of our consciousness? Okay? It's the difference between that chatter, that naming, that that categorizing, that judging, that, oh, that's a bad memory, or that's a memory I have, so I don't want to look at this further. So it's trying to quiet all that chatter so that the higher mind can influence what we're doing. Okay, listening, and then the ideal that we're working towards is to listen from a place of silence and stillness. Responding from the heart. This is the second piece that I have here. So heart-centered dialogue is not necessarily speaking from our feelings. Sometimes when we say heart, we think feelings, and we start gushing how we feel. Okay? It is moving beyond the senses, beyond the sense of feeling, into the space of things being whole, where there's full potential, okay, where the insights are. This is as opposed to head-centered speaking. All right, this is where the conversation comes from. It's based on input from the senses, which is fragmented, limited, and most of the time unreliable. When we live from the lower mind, our thoughts, words, and actions most of the time, come from a reactionary state of being. When we're unaware of this state, it causes us to be pushed and pulled by our desires. And our desires are usually those that it's what we want. We just want what I want. So when we can be aware of this, we can move into a place that is filtered, that causes our reactions and communications instead of responding, or what we're looking for is to respond from a place of confidence. Okay? What I propose here is to take these skills to our lodge meetings, our individual work, which will move our study from the world of the mundane towards transcendental realities, not just in the material we study, but in how we study the material. Okay, from the Secret Doctrine, or the Collected Writings, HPB tells us, the heart is the center of the spiritual consciousness, as the brain is the center of the intellectual consciousness. So there's these different places. We can speak from intellectual consciousness, but we can also speak our goal as to bring into our influence the occult consciousness is to be from the heart center, where the spiritual consciousness lies. But the spiritual consciousness cannot be guided by the personality until the personality is completely united in Buddhi-manas. This is the enlightened mind. So until then, the spiritual consciousness makes effort to impress the lower consciousness, and those efforts are helped by growth in purity. So here we're going to start to purify our personality so that it will be able to hear the little tinklings of our spiritual consciousness until Buddhi-manas can influence our whole nature. Lost my cursor. Yes, and I can't
Well, including with this.
yeah, but no. So our heart is the spiritual consciousness, and which corresponds to the Buddhic principle. Our brain is the intellectual consciousness, which is the monastic principle. Okay, and this is what we're trying to unite.
You can continue.
Okay, so I can get my notes. No, but
Bring
that's
it up
what they're
again.
looking at.
Bring it up again.
All right, so the application here is to purify in order to purify, we must first be able to distinguish between heart and head reactions and consciousness. Our exercise is where in our relationships are we most reactionary? Are we able to see the reactions rise and just watch them until the energy dissipates? This space between our reactions is our heart or our higher consciousness. It's in the silence that we find that. And then the ideal, when we can discern the brain from the heart, we create a space and our actions come not from an immediate reaction, but from a response. Here is where there's natural compassion and wisdom. It's in the response. And one of the goals of this type of communication, the dialogue, is to create gentle responses. I'm a reactionary person. My brain automatically, I realize, goes into competitive mode. I have to figure out how to put everything in its place, how I'm going to stay on top of everything, how I'm going to win. And so my reactions, that's where my reactions come from. So when I notice that, what I can do then is find the spaces or the gaps in between those reactions where I can find just a moment to start with that I can respond with compassion and wisdom. Okay, so the third set is speak with purpose and awareness. Are we aware of the movements of an unguarded mind? This is what I just talked about. My general state of mind is survival mode. Who's my enemy? Who's my ally? Where do things fit? Where's my escape route if I need it? So naturally, my conversation takes this state of mind. And I'm on a committee, and I have this ability, curse or gift, but I have this ability to see 10 steps down the line. And so I see the community has built a cart, and they're so excited about the cart, and they're jumping in the cart, and they're going forward in the cart. I see the cliff that's a mile down the road that the cart's going to eventually go off in. So I'm yelling, my reactionary is, the cart's going to crash, the cart's going to crash. But if no one else sees the cliff, I'm just this reactionary person yelling, swinging their arms around. So what I've learned to do is to say, does anybody else see a cliff down the road? And many times I get, no. So then I have to go back and trust the process that somebody will see the cliff before it crashes into it. And I found that this works for me. I'm still reacting, but I'm reacting from a much gentler response. So, and I will say that's taken a long time and a lot of energy. But so have we, for this purpose, have we ever taken the time to think about why we speak? Why do we speak up? I know one thing I learned was once I stopped gossiping or being sarcastic or talking about people in general or things, even things, that I didn't have a whole lot to say. So I really took a look one time when I was in a lodge meeting. Why am I speaking? Why am I doing this? And I noticed that I was speaking for a couple reasons. One of them was boredom. I don't like silence. To me, silence is an action. Inaction is wasteful. I'm not moving forward. I'm not going. So I always try to fill that silence gap. The other one was I noticed that I wanted people to know who I was. I wanted people to respect me, to know that I was smart. So I would, always make sure I spoke up. Once I realized that, and it was a nice insight, I was able to sit in a meeting and listen more. So I was able to listen with that silence. And then when I spoke, it wasn't just chitter chatter so I could have something to say. It came from a place of wisdom. So I was able to, not a whole lot all the time, but I was able to find wisdom.
computer is kind of that cheap.
Okay, so basically, can we bring this awareness to our conversations and ask again, why do I speak? What are the motivations behind me voicing my opinion? Can we bring awareness to our lodge discussions and decrease the ping pong ball effect of discussions and bring it to more dialogue where we're getting insights? So I don't mean for us to stop speaking, but to examine the why, to question, why am I doing this? Because what I think we do, it's funny because in our lodge meetings or for me in our everyday life, there's this uncomfortableness with the silence. But the silence is the very goal of meditation. So what the idea of meditative inquiry is take that silence off the cushion, out of our simplicity. Okay, and this is where we all know that we start with the unity. We come down and that's the circle with the point. We come down to the circle with the diameter, then we have a duality, and bam, we have a triplicity, which is the swastika, and then the swastika moves, and we have a multiplicity. So that's pretty much the manifestation of the universe, the manifestation of man, of principles, and even of our own thoughts. They kind of, if we sit and meditate on that, and I won't be able to walk you through it because we'll run out of time. But that's the idea.
We talk about that later in the meeting.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't think I have this meditation. Okay. So the idea then is in meditation to reverse that, to go from the multiplicity and bring it all together to a triplicity. So what's the triplicity? God. Sorry. The Father, God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit is the triplicity that we know most of. I'm going to butcher these off the top of my head. So the absolute abstract motion, the absolute abstract space. That's another triplicity. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take that and move to a duality. So we just see kind of the polarity of it. We just see the spirit and matter. And then from there, kind of just sit and realize that it all comes from that one all that Madame Blavatsky talks about. So that's a really quick version of that. So when we do that, what we're doing is we're bringing it back to the unity. We're bringing it back to that silent space from which all potential is. And then our ideal is to speak with purpose and awareness from the circle with the center point. I believe this is the fourth one. So I think I'm doing okay that time. So this one is from the substratum, we have spontaneity. It is only from a spontaneous state of inner silence that we can open ourselves to our true nature, reversing the manifestation from multiplicity to unity. All right, there's a U-shaped paradigm that explains this spontaneity. Okay, there's spontaneousness or spontaneity from ignorance, where we're pushed and pulled by our desire, our conditionings, our memories, our judgments. This impulse comes from kama, the animal man. It's the instinctual behavior. It has no thinking involved. And we all know people, most of us are beyond this state for the majority of our life, for the majority of our life. But we can see people who just react, okay, and push and pull without even thinking. I can think of when my kids were teenagers, I saw a lot of this, okay? It's that I just want what I want. And so it is spontaneous, but it's spontaneous without any thinking going on. The second stage is an entanglement between ignorance and wisdom, in which our consciousness, manas, tends towards either kama, or buddhi. So it either tends towards the animalistic nature or it tends towards the spiritual nature. The animal man or the spiritual nature. The instinctual behavior or the intuitional behavior. And now this is the stage, if we know the symbol of the Theosophical Society, in the center you have the six-pointed star consisting of two triangles. One of the triangles pointed down is the animal nature or the instinctive nature. The triangle pointing up is the spiritual nature. And they're not laying on top of one another. They're intertwined because this is where we are. We're at this battleground or this junction where we're trying to untangle ourselves from the animal nature and trying to reach towards our higher nature. Okay? The third stage is spontaneousness or spontaneity from wisdom. When we are influenced by our higher nature, our every action, thought, and emotion spontaneously moves in the direction of selflessness and wholeness. That's the spontaneity that we're talking about here. This is the spontaneity that Adam Blavatsky talks about coming from the diagram of meditation. We'll talk about it in a minute. So when the monastic entity, the higher ego, sends an impulse downward to the lower nature, it appears to the personality as spontaneous, free, uncaused by any action on the lower plane. Or so it is, for the causes that work on the personality are of the higher, not the lower plane. So this is like when we work at something day by day, in and out. We have our intention, we have our focus, we have our minds on the goal, and we do it day by day by day. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, bam, out of nowhere, that thing happens, and it feels like grace. It feels like it came from nowhere. And all of a sudden we were graced with what we've been wanting for so long. But really we've been working at it inch by inch in order for that critical mass to be filled, in order for that grace to come down and influence. This is exactly how the higher ego works in influencing our personality. Our application. The application here is to move from out of the entanglement of the intertwined triangles to the central on, where spirit ruled over matters. Once again, in the emblem, you have the snake, you have the two intertwined triangles, and inside that you have the cross with the circle above it, the Egyptian on, which is spirit ruling over matter. So it happens inch by inch, step by step, as we do our daily work. Our exercise in the diagram of meditation, Madame Blavatsky talks about two things. She talks about acquisitions and deprivations. Our acquisitions are anything that aligns our participation with our higher nature. That's our study, that's our meditation, that's our service, that's our intention to transform. The deprivations are removing those things or purifying our lower nature so that our higher can be reflected. Removing those seeds of selfishness. Removing those seeds of I want what I want. Removing those seeds of listening because I want to make sure I get my word in instead of listening from silence. Okay, and the ideal is to tap into the substratum. From here, our actions become wisely spontaneous. And I know I'm going to butcher it. Madame Blavatsky says, from here, compassion. And I'm talking about that one line in the diagram of meditation. The substratum from here comes courage. Courage. Yeah, I'll get it tomorrow. Sorry. I usually don't try to quote off the top of my head because I butcher it. All right. I think I did it. Okay. So I should have. I usually give disclaimers, and when I talk, I notice the difference between Pablo and I. Pablo picks a topic and really dives deep into it. I pick many topics and to give you kind of seeds to jump from after here. So since, I don't know if I left you with things flying all over the place.
No, but I think that this is what I was talking about, how to study. This is the training that allows you to study in that way. So, yeah, I don't know if we need all.
Well,
We have that.
I didn't know if you thought I was done or not exactly finished.
I mean,
Yeah, so that's the difference. Couple pinpoints, I give you a wide variety of topics to choose from. But I think these are really important. We'll kind of touch on them each day, and then from there, I'll expand on the book. So what I like to ask for is, since you do have something probably running around all in there, is to do a takeaway. So first I want to do a takeaway, and you don't have to say it out loud, but it's one thing that you got. It can either be from Pablo's part or my part, but that you got from tonight that will, that you can take home, that you can go do as soon as you get back to your room, or that you can start tomorrow morning. So think about that one thing, and then if anybody would like to share, Treat has the microphone for it. Oh, you know what? So you don't have to walk all day. 3 things. If you have a takeaway, a question, or a comment, you can say it now. And
Let me start.
okay. Oh, okay, great.
First question, you got lots of information in the slide, and I was just wondering if you're going to distribute the slide later on for the participant in here, because I see people were taking snapshots all over the place, and
Right.
I guess people want to capture that information down and go through the practice and so on. So are you going to publish the slide pack later on?
I can. I am notorious. We are notorious for saying yes and never getting it together. So I will say yes, I will try. My initial reaction was out of fear that you would take this and present it better than me. But when my response is yes, please take this and present it better than me. So yes, I will work on that. Okay.
Great. So, Santi?
Thank you, Michelle. My takeaways, I love the way the whole conversation of free dialogue. It's going to be very it's introducing that novel study, so, and the idea of creating space and visualizing, I can already visualize it, right? All of us there and creating a space for discussion and for dialogue. That's the big thing. Thank you.
Yes, it's really, what you're doing is you're creating sacred space. And this is just a system to come from the mundane world, cross over a threshold into the sacred space that you and your group are creating a container from which insights will come.
My takeaway is Pablo has kind of reduced a little bit of the innovation of the secret doctrine. I start reading the secret doctrine and maybe in my 1,000th reincarnation.
Right, no, you're not alone. You're not alone.
That will encourage me to attempt it. Hopefully get a little bit more.
By Sunday, you'll
Right.
be golden.
Don't bet your 401k.
Oh, I think I will. I think I'll do that.
I think what you and Pablo mentioned is curiosity. Whatever you approach with a curious mind. That's an open mind. And even when you study the secret doctrine, we will only bring what we perceive out of it, and everybody will perceive it we're two can read the same thing, but we have a different mindset and we read a different message. So always having an open mind is what they say that I'm sure it's open.
And I don't know if you'll mention it, in the book, Pablo talks about a helix. I always thought it was a spiral, but a spiral is a flat. A helix is three-dimensional, so we're in a helix, you know, we come around to the same thing, but we're not at the same level, we're a little higher. We come around again, and we come around again. Yes,
Speaking of that helix, that's how the sun is moving in space.
okay, there's how what?
What I'm saying, I mean, the helix, that's exactly how the sun is moving. At the helix,
Right.
So it's very special.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, so we are going to see, Blavatsky says that the original force, the one force that then divides in all the different forces we know, that she calls Fohat, moves in spiral. That's why that motion is imprinted in all systems